I believe we are up to our final ancient tier list. Today we've got Darv. Darv is a throwback ancient to Slay the Spire 1. He has a collection of some of the best relics in the game alongside some of the worst ones that you can find. And I believe, you can correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, Darv is the only ancient that you can get at the beginning of Act 2 or the beginning of Act 3. He can actually show up in either act, but he's also the rarest ancient for you to come across. The first relic to talk about is Astrolabe. Upon pickup, transform 3 cards and then upgrade them. This is getting dropped directly into the high value tier. Transforming is in Slay the Spire 2 is absolutely incredible. An upgraded version of a transform card is always going to be better than a strike, and presumably by the time you reach the Darv choices, you're going to have at least a couple strikes that you're going to want to transform into high powered cards, and you're going to want them upgraded right away. It is a very, very solid relic that kind of just works in every situation. Astrolabe is just a way to, in a sense, thin out your deck. It doesn't really thin out your deck because it is making it a different card, but it thins it out in the way of removing really, really bad cards. Occasionally, a transform might turn into a useless card for you or something you don't like, but honestly, transforming is super, super powerful in this game. I know that transforming is a little scary for new people. I've heard it in the comment section in some of my other videos. I can definitely sympathize, but it's also a way for you to test out things and try out new combinations of cards that you maybe otherwise never would have given a chance to. Next up is Black Star. Elites drop an additional relic when defeated. Black Star was not super great in Slay the Spire 1. I find myself taking it a lot more in this game. I do think that it's pretty decent, but I think in terms of Darv Relics, it kind of fits right in the middle. It is very much so run dependent because you want to have the right situation in order to take this relic. You want to be able to defeat elites. You want to have a good path to take on elites. So if you get this after Act 1, take a look at the Act 2 map before you choose it. If you have a great path with a decent amount of elites, this is pretty good. The only problem with Black Star is that it doesn't directly help you right away. So the first couple hallway fights that you face, you're not going to have an advantage as an ancient relic. You will have an advantage once you beat the first elite, because you're going to get 2 relics from that. And then if you beat the next one, you're going to get another 2 relics. It does fall off a little in Act 3 because I know a lot of people kind of avoid elite fights a little more in Act 3. For me personally, I'm trying to take on as many elites as I can before I get to the bosses so that I'm stronger and more powerful. And Black Star is sort of that like middle of the road relic where if you get offered some of the bad choices, you can take it and feel pretty okay that you're going to get some sort of value out of it, but it may not be that great depending on the circumstances. So I like putting it into the run dependent category. Next up, Calling Bell. Upon pickup, obtain a unique curse and 3 relics. The unique curse is an eternal unplayable curse called Curse of the Bell. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you probably don't really want a curse. I'm going to drop Calling Bell right into the good, but you could probably do better category. I value this a lot less than I value something like Black Star because that curse is going to potentially be a problem. I find that a lot of times after Act 1, I might have a greed curse already in the deck. This is essentially a second version of that greed curse, and you don't really want too many of those. Also, if I don't have that greed curse, a lot of times my deck is sort of forming an identity already by the time I get to the beginning of Act 2. It kind of becomes a problem to add a curse into certain decks. If it works the same in Slay the Spire 2 as it did in Slay the Spire 1, you get a common relic, an uncommon relic, and a rare relic. And if I'm not mistaken, Calling Bell works the same way in this game. If it doesn't, let me know in the comment section if I'm wrong. Getting 3 relics, always really good if you get them at the same time. It's just that that curse is really tough. I do think Calling Bell is a great relic. I just think that Darv offers so many really good options that you're most likely going to be able to do better if you pick up one of the other relics that we're going to talk about in the higher tiers. And we got Empty Cage. This is going to be one of those relics that I think is a lot better than Calling Bell. And this is upon pickup, remove 2 cards from your deck. That's getting dropped right into the high value tier. Removing cards is amazing, especially as you move up an ascension at some point. I always forget which ascension it is. I want to say maybe 4. Maybe it's 6. The cost of removing a card at the shop goes up. So there are very few ways for you to remove cards consistently. Removing cards is a really valuable way of making your deck more consistent and making your deck just better by being able to draw into your really good cards quicker. And Empty Cage is a way to remove 2 cards from your deck instantly. There's no downside. It doesn't hurt you. I think that this can be chosen in just about every single run. By the time you run into this, either at the end of Act 1 or at the end of Act 2, you probably still have some starter cards in your deck. Maybe you even have a card that you picked up that you thought was really good at the beginning of the game and now doesn't fit in the plans that you have. Empty Cage is just going to allow you to just remove that extra kind of garbage and make the deck thinner, make the deck more consistent, and just make your deck overall better. Next, we'll talk about Ectoplasm. You can no longer gain gold, gain 1 energy at the start of each turn. Ectoplasm, going straight into that trap tier. Energy is an incredible benefit of a relic. It is really, really hard to get passive energy. It is much more difficult than it was in the very first game, but Ectoplasm is definitely not worth it. Not being able to gain gold in this game is a way worse punishment than it was in the first game. And in the first game, that was a terrible negative. I find myself going to merchants a lot more often in this game than I did in the first one. I'm usually going to at least 3 merchants in the entire run. 4 if I have the right situation. If, like, say I end up getting the 999 gold from No New People, whatever the hell her name is. Gold is one of the most valuable resources that you can have in Slay the Spire 2, and you really don't want to end up missing out on that just for an extra energy per turn, because there are a lot of ways to generate energy if you really need to, through cards, through other relics that aren't ancient relics, that might be a lot easier and won't have the negative downsides that Ectoplasm has. There's just so much that you want to do with the merchant, and Ectoplasm prevents you from doing all of it. Next up, we got Pandora's Box. Transform all strikes and defends. We already talked about how strong transforming was when we talked about Astrolabe. Well, Pandora's Box is giving you a possibility at transforming the 10 worst cards in your deck. 5 strikes, 5 defends. Even if you delete some of those strikes before you run into Pandora's Box, this is going to be amazing. This is a snap pick. I take this almost every single time I see Pandora's Box. This may very well be the best relic in the game. It is pretty much tied with another relic that, spoiler alert, we're about to talk about. Pandora's Box is an immediate snap pick. The only time you're really not using Pandora's Box, I guess, is if you managed to somehow remove like 7 or 8 strikes and defends before you actually ran into this relic. That just never really happens. I had that happen once in Slay the Spire 1, and I still took it, because Pandora's Box is incredible. Transforming cards is just great in general in this game, because you could potentially get something that's really, really strong. Transforming strikes is even stronger, because strikes are the worst card you can have in the game. Defends are a little better than strikes, but defends are really not great cards anyway. And you could potentially transform those defends into better block cards. It is a little risky, Pandora's Box, if you don't have enough block cards, because you are giving up 5 of those block cards. So just be a little weary when you're doing that with Pandora's Box. I would still say take it just about every time. Just be careful about your initial pathing after that, because if you don't have enough block cards or damage mitigation outside of those defends and they don't transform into those, then you're going to have a little bit of a tougher time in the beginning stages after you transform everything. Just pick up a couple block cards along the way and you're going to be good to go, and you're going to see that your deck is a lot stronger as a result of all those transforms. And hey, look at that. We're going to talk about the other relic that I think might be the best relic in the game. It is Runic Pyramid. Runic Pyramid getting dropped straight into that snap tier. At the end of your turn, you no longer discard your hand. If you've been playing this game at any point in time, you probably recognize how good it is to have retain on a card. Well, Runic Pyramid is going to put retain on every single one of your cards. You are never going to run out of cards because you're going to be holding on to them at all times. It is a little difficult to manage when you're new, when you're not as experienced in the game. You might not be able to kind of cycle through the hand that you have because Pyramid is holding on to everything, and you're maybe not used to discarding as much or exhausting cards that aren't important and things like that. But Runic Pyramid is a really good way for you to start learning how to do that, because that is going to help you progress in the game a lot. Runic Pyramid is genuinely probably actually the best relic in the game over Pandora's Box, but it's really, really close. The two of them are the two best relics in the game. I guess nothing's 100% in Slay the Spire 2, but if Runic Pyramid and Pandora's Box are not the two best, they're definitely in the top 3, if not the top 5. Like, these are absolutely incredible relics, and Runic Pyramid allows you to sort of hold on to your hand and play the cards that you want to play at the right time on the right turns. It is absolutely incredible. Runic Pyramid is just that damn powerful. I think retain is one of the most important keywords in the entire game. Even on something as simple as a defend, retain is just really, really good. And Runic Pyramid is going to allow you to be able to retain anything and everything. Next up is Snecko Eye. At the start of your turn, draw 2 additional cards. Start each combat confused. You might be confused about what confused is. Well, I'm here to tell you. Confused means that the cost of every single card that you draw is going to be randomized between 0 and 3 energy. So at any point in time, you may end up with a 3-cost card that goes down to 0, or a 0-cost card that goes all the way up to 3. That may scare you if you're a new person. I'm here to let you know that it is not scary. The power of Snecko lies in the start of that description. At the start of your turn, draw 2 additional cards. Card draw is unbelievable in this game, and Snecko Eye is amazing. In Slay the Spire 1, this was easily a high value, maybe even a snap pick relic, but I think in Slay the Spire 2, it is very much so deck or run dependent, because there are a lot of really good 0-cost cards in this game, and I find myself picking them up a lot. If you don't have a bunch of higher cost cards, or you only have a deck filled with like 1-cost cards and 0-cost, this isn't going to be worth it, because it's going to randomize a lot of those 1-cost cards into 3-cost cards. But if you have a bunch of things that are 2 or 3-cost cards, this is an absolutely amazing relic to grab right away. Even if you do have a couple of 0-cost cards, there's nothing wrong with taking Snecko Eye. The extra draw is really going to be good. The threat of a 3-cost card is not as strong as you may think. It's basically going to make it either a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3-cost card. So you have a 25% chance that it's any one of those things. So you may very well draw into a hand of like 7 0-cost cards, and that's really good. Or you might draw into a hand of 7 3-cost cards, and that would be really bad. So Snecko Eye, a little bit of a gamble, but honestly really, really strong. A lot of new people don't really like this relic because they think that, you know, the higher cost is going to be really bad and they're really scared of it, or they've had a couple of bad experiences with it. I'm telling you, Snekawai is really, really strong and just a lot of fun. I think that it is deck or run dependent though, because there's so many times that you're gonna have a lot of lower cost stuff that are really good cards and you're not necessarily gonna have any of the expensive ones. But if you do pick up Snekawai, you can now take super expensive cards all the time. Their costs are most likely going to go down. You're going to be grabbing some 4-cost cards like Berry, and now suddenly Berry will never be 4-cost. It'll be always less, and that's pretty cool. So Snekawai, there's a lot of benefits, a lot of cool things that you can kind of pull off where you otherwise might not have been able to because you didn't have enough energy. Sozu, gain 1 energy at the start of each turn. You can no longer obtain potions, and check it out. Sozu's getting dropped right next to Ectoplasm for the same exact reasons as Ectoplasm. We went over it a lot. Yes, energy is really, really good in this game. It's really awesome, but no longer obtaining potions is really, really bad. In Slay the Spire 1, this relic sucked. Honestly, this relic was really bad, but now in Slay the Spire 2, I think it's like way, way worse because there's so many different ways that you can get more potion slots. There's so many different ways that you can get potions from like ancients and things like that. It is really, really bad to kind of cut yourself off from that section of the game by grabbing a Sozu early and not being able to obtain any more potions. This does work if you have like full potion slots filled and you're saving all your potions for the Act 3 boss and you know you're not going to use them before then. In that case, grab the Sozu, man. You'll get yourself an extra energy. And in theory, there's no downside to it. But generally speaking, that's usually not the case. Usually you're still going to want to use potions in like elite fights on the way to that Act 3 boss. And you're not really going to want to be unable to obtain any more potions. It's just really not a very good relic. It's especially not good if you have something like File Holster or Potion Belt or, you know, any of the other relics that are going to give you more potion slots. It's just extra bad in that situation. Next up, we got Philosopher's Stone. Gain 1 energy at the start of each turn. All enemies start combat with 1 strength. I think it's just going to get dropped into trap tier, though I could hear an argument for good, but you could do better. I do think that it's better than Ectoplasm and Sozu. There's a lot of enemies with multi-strikes in this game, and you really don't necessarily want to give them 1 extra strength because they are going to go kind of ballistic on you. Specifically, the reason that I'm dropping it into trap tier at this moment is because of the changes to Infested Prism. Infested Prism starts to build himself up really quickly. Giving him an extra strength is really, really brutal. I just think the downside to the trap tier relics is really, really not worth it, especially as they're starting to introduce buffs to the enemies in early access. It is really probably not worth taking like 98% of the time, so I'm just gonna leave it in the trap tier. Next up is Velvet Choker. Gain 1 energy at the start of each turn. You cannot play more than 6 cards per turn. Velvet Choker is pretty much the very definition of deck or run dependent. I would put it at the bottom of this tier below these guys. I would put Snekawai a little ahead of Black Star, but I would put Velvet Choker at the bottom because I really am tempted to put it into the good, but you could do better tier. Most of the time, especially if you have an extra energy, you're probably going to want to play more than 6 cards per turn. So Velvet Choker becomes a bane at the end of the run. At the beginning, it's not so bad because you don't have as many cards that are going to produce like high level decks and synergies. When you get to like the Act 3 bosses, you might really regret that you can only play 6 cards in a turn. But sometimes you just have these big energy cards and you don't mind getting an extra energy because you're never playing 6 cards per turn. So Velvet Choker in that situation is amazing. I do think that it is just strictly run dependent and deck dependent based on what you really have going on. If you're playing more than 6 cards per turn, you don't ever want to take this. But if you're only playing like 3 or 4 cards every single turn, Velvet Choker is a really solid option. I like it a lot. I just think that a lot of the times it's closer to D tier than it is to that C tier. So just keep that in mind before you grab it. Really, really know the breakdown of your deck at that very moment when you're going to get it, and also know the limits that it's going to put on you once you get deeper and deeper into a run. And if you can accept that, that's totally fine, and everything should be very solid in that situation. And the final relic we're going to talk about is Dusty Tome. However, Dusty Tome is, upon pickup, obtain an ancient card. There are 5 different ancient cards. Though this is the last relic, there are 5 different versions of this relic to talk about, and we are going to rank each single one on here. There is 1 ancient card for each character. The first card to talk about is the Ironclad's Corruption. Skills cost 0 energy. Whenever you play a skill, exhaust it. It is a 3-cost power card, and if you upgrade it, it becomes a 2-cost. Corruption was absolutely magnificent in Slay the Spire 1 because there were a lot of ways to make corruption go absolutely ballistic. Unfortunately, in Slay the Spire 2, a lot of those things were kind of nerfed. Dark Embrace is now a rare card. You can only get corruption from Darv, so you might not have a deck that's leaning in the direction of exhausting and being able to play all your skills for free. You might not have a Feel No Pain at that point. You may have passed on it because Feel No Pain is not an auto pick in this game anymore. For all those reasons, I am sadly going to drop Corruption into the bottom of the deck or run dependent tier. And honestly, I could drop it to the top of good, but you could do better tier. I think I'm just like really struggling to do that because Corruption was so powerful in the first game. And I know it's powerful here. I just think that a lot of the times you don't necessarily have the deck set up in order to use Corruption. It is absolutely wonderful if you do. If you already have a Dark Embrace in your deck, if you already have a Feel No Pain, if you're already doing things with like Stoke or something like that, Corruption is going to help you to move forward with that and do big things. The problem is a lot of the times you don't have that situation. Like whenever I see Corruption, I do feel like it's just not quite there. You know, it's just not like as good as it was in the first game, which is really painful to say, to be honest. As a Slay the Spire 1 lover, Corruption was absolutely incredible. I just think that it's not quite as strong in this game. So it's going to find itself right there in that middle tier in the deck and run dependent category. Next up is Wraith Form, a 3-cost power card that has gain 2 intangible. At the start of your turn, lose 1 dexterity. And if you upgrade it, gain 3 intangible. Wraith Form was another absolutely goated card in Slay the Spire 1 that I do feel like has fallen off a lot in Slay the Spire 2. Because a lot of the times losing that dexterity is really, really negative. You don't have a way to prevent that from happening. And in this game, what I've found so far, it's still early access, so things may change in the near future even. But definitely by the time the game gets fully released, you're building up a lot of dexterity when you're silent. Like that is something that you really, really want to do. So Wraith Form loses a lot of power as a result of that. Losing dexterity is going to slowly hurt you. If you don't know what intangible is, intangible means that the enemies are only going to hit you for 1 damage that turn. Intangible is obviously still really strong. I just think that this is going to get dropped into the good but could do better tier. It like hurts to say that, but I do think that it's not as strong because energy is harder to come by. There's no way to prevent you from losing the dexterity every single turn. You have to really make sure that you are prepared to not get hit, but also be able to do a ton of damage after you play the Wraith form. If you can't, things are going to get a lot harder for you once the intangible wears off. Then you have no dexterity. Now you can't block at all. It is a really weird, sad situation with Wraith form. They've really managed to kind of neutralize all these really good cards from the first game, which is completely understandable because it was OP. It was insane. This is just hard to rank higher than the good, but you could do better tier. It is really, really good in the right situations, though. So don't sleep on it completely. It can be overpowered if you find yourself in the right spot. Forbidden Grimoire is the Necrobinder's power card, and it is a 2-cost. At the start of combat, you may remove a card from your deck, Eternal, and if you upgrade it, it is a 1-cost card. I'm telling you right now, this is an absolutely unbelievable card. And I'm going to actually just drop it into the top of high value tier because I want you guys to understand how good Pyramid and Pandora's Box is. I think that Grimoire is really, really close to that. I really honestly think that Grimoire should possibly be a snap pick as well. I do think that this is the third best relic that Darv offers. If you happen to be Necrobinder and he happens to offer you Dusty Tome in that situation, Grimoire is amazing. I had a run where I was able to get the deck down to 4 cards plus Grimoire, and I was able to just easily go infinite and have an absolutely insane run and destroy the bosses in that situation. You can't always do that anymore because they did nerf infinites a lot, but Grimoire is going to help you to get rid of all those strikes, all those defends. We talked about it with Empty Cage and Astrolabe, how important that is. And it's also going to be able to help you get rid of some of those early game cards that you don't want to deal with anymore. Grimoire is just a phenomenal way of removing cards from your deck. It's just not quite as good as Pyramid and Pandora's Box, so I got to put it at the top of high value tier. Really, if you've never tried this card out, definitely give it a whirl. Removing cards is super, super valuable in this game. Getting a nice thin, like 10 to 15 card deck because a Grimoire that is working in tandem and just working really well together is going to make fights faster. It's going to make you stronger. And it's just an amazingly awesome power card in the game. Sealed Throne is the Regent's card. Whenever you play a card, gain 1 star. It is a 1 energy, 3-star costed card. And if you upgrade it, it's a 0 energy, 3-star cost card. This just got nerfed in the last patch for the beta version. And I honestly don't know where to put it because they took away Innate from it, and Innate was absolutely unbelievable. This was a way for you to have constant star generation in 1 card and absolutely dominate on Regent. I think that it's a reasonable nerf, but it also makes me feel like I don't know where this card ends up. I'm going to actually drop this down to the deck or run dependent category. Before this, I would have had it in the high value tier right next to Forbidden Grimoire, but removing Innate from it means that you have to dig through your deck in order to get this. By the time you get it, it might be at the bottom of the deck. Then you're shuffling through. You didn't have your star generation going, and it became like a very, very bad card. I don't know because I haven't used it since the update happened. I haven't been offered it in the game. This may very well still be high value. I just get really scared without it having Innate on it. Please let me know in the comments section, how do you feel about Sealed Throne? Do you still think that it's just as high, as valuable as it was before? Do you think the Innate wasn't really that big a deal? As a person that, again, hasn't used it yet, I do think that it's really, really rough not having the Innate on it. So I don't really know if it's going to be that good. If I can find it as Regent, I'm going to take it immediately and test it out, see how it goes. but I don't think that this is as high value as it once was. And the final Dusty Tome card to talk about is the Defects Biased Cognition. Gain 4 focus at the start of your turn, lose 1 focus. And if you upgrade it, it's gain 5 focus, and it is a 1 cost card. Biased Cognition was absolutely amazing in the first game, and I still think it's amazing in this game. I'm going to go ahead and drop Bicog into the bottom of the high value tier, and it kind of teeters on the top of deck run dependent. It is a very, very good card. It is a great way for you to gain focus. Sometimes you're not really doing too much with orbs after Act 1 though. Maybe you got like sort of a status build, but most of the time you are going to have some frost orbs. Most of the time you're going to have something to do with orbs, and Bias Cognition is going to make you way, way stronger. Focus is really, really hard to come by in this game. You do have to be careful, because if you start losing a lot of focus, you might end up in the negatives in focus. So just keep that in mind when you're using Bias Cognition. You don't want to screw yourself over. You want to make sure that that focus is coming in handy, but it is a very, very good card once you get a hold of it and once you're not worried about losing too much focus. The reason I put it at the bottom of high value instead of the top of deck dependent is because I do think that there's a lot of value still, and most of the time you're going to have some orbs. And even if you don't, you could pick this up and then switch up and start to pick up some Frost Orb cards and things like that. I think that focus is just that damn valuable. I do think that the other 3 relics in high value are a lot stronger than Bias Cognition. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. You can really go off with a lot more focus if you're using it correctly. Bicog is just one of those ways that all of a sudden your scaling as defect goes absolutely insane. So after all that, I guess Dusty Tome is going to find itself right into the deck run dependent category. Darv is one of my favorite ancients. It's really cool to see these like throwback relics from Slay the Spire 1 that he carries around. It is really nice to grab something as powerful as Pyramid and Pandora's Box. It is really not nice to grab some of the trap tier relics. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on my tier list. Let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get more subscribers. We're on the road to 5,000, and it would help out a lot if you subscribed. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.